Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another tutorial of Salesforce Makes Sense. This is Himanshu and we are continuing our Lightning Web Components Masterclass. So we have done about 75 tutorials already. This is the 76th one. And in terms of people asking me about the progress and how long will it take to complete the curriculum, I would rather say that I'm planning to make a century with this particular playlist as well. So you can assume and expect around 20 to 25 more tutorials which will cover some topics which are yet to be closed, and then we'll do use cases like practical real-time use cases towards the end of the curriculum. So I'm looking at probably 100 chapters in total. All right, so with that clear, let's now look at how to call Apex methods imperatively. The previous tutorials have been around how to use wire, and I believe now you are comfortable with the wire methods. Right now, imperatively calling Apex methods is another option, because what you have in wire is every time a component is loaded, the wire method takes care of getting your data from the database. But if you want to do something reactively but not proactively, meaning on a click of a button you want to call the database, right? If you want to handle any kind of browser event and based on that you want to call Apex method, you cannot use wire there, correct? So with wire services, you cannot call them on events like clicks or changes, right? That's a limitation. That's where you need something like imperative way of calling Apex. So we'll look at what is imperative way and how do you use it. Imperative way helps in controlling when an Apex method can be called, because wire method you don't have control. As in, I want to call this Apex method after this method returns true. No, you cannot do that. With wires you cannot do. With imperatives you can do it. Right? Wires are basically called every time there's a change in data, and it constantly keeps pulling data time and again, and based on the cache it stores it there. However, imperative methods, to be clear, imperative methods are executed only once per execution. Like basically, let's say a button is clicked, Apex method is called, that's it. It will not be called again and again. Okay, so to understand what is the syntax, primarily see I'm focusing on the syntax and how you can use this option. I'll use the same previous example that we looked at, which is search task by subjects. We'll create another LWC component, but this time instead of using a wire method that was getting the data every time on load, I actually want the user to input what kind of subject is he or she looking for, and that subject string is what I want to pass to my method. Whenever they click a button, that they say search tasks. So it is not going to be a wire, because this use case that I just mentioned, wherein I need a button click, and on click of a button I want to call Apex, is not possible here. Okay, so now let's look at that scenario. I'll keep this task controller as is because it's still solving my purpose of getting the data from Apex. But what I'll do is I'll just get rid of these guys and I'll create a new LWC component. This will be called search task by subject imperative. All right, a bit long, but it's okay. Imperative. All right, now again coming back to my fundamental idea of how to design things without thinking that I am a robot or you are a robot. Write it in English first. So I want the user to input the subject string. Okay, once they do it, I want them to click a button. When they click a button, I want to call Apex method. After Apex method returns the data, I want to display it on a table. That's basically all I want to do with this use case. Correct? It's written in English, it is sorted. Now I will convert it into LWC. Should not be a big deal. Now in this tutorial, what I'll do is I'll use the Salesforce documentation and try to take as much of copy paste that I can. Okay, that's the idea. So I'll come here, I'll say first of all I need a lightning input. So I'll just simply type lightning input. Lightning input. Let's go in here. The -1 is the LWC one. Input. Okay, what do we need? We need a basic text. All right, I'll just take a text. You can also take a pick list. That's also available somewhere here. Drop down or something, right? That's basically something else here. What I'll do is I'll take a basic pick list. Now if not a basic pick list, a basic text box. Okay, so enter some text, a text with required. Yeah, this one, enter some text or text field that's required. This is nice. I want them to fill it in mandatorily, right? So a text input field that is required. So if I extend this text input field with placeholder with is required, yeah, this one. So I'll just take this particular div entirely, put it here. As simple as that. I'll say a text input field that is required. I'll get rid of this p tag. I don't need this. And what I'll do is remove the extra comments, and then I'll say input type equal to text. I'll say enter your subject, and I'll say type here, this is fine, and it is marked required. Required is basically what will ensure that the user does not submit the form without filling this field. Okay, it will come with a asterisk sign. Okay, my input field is created. Perfect. What's the next thing that I need? The next thing that I need is, okay, before going into the next thing, let's sort the input type field completely. All right, now I'll get rid of this first line because I have taken care of the first line. Now they can input the field. Let me go ahead and deploy this. Deploy. What am I missing here before deployment? You guys must have guessed it already. That's our day-to-day work now. Targets, and the target should basically be Lightning homepage. Where is Lightning homepage? Lightning homepage. Okay, cool. Done. Deploy again. Deployed. Let's go back to Chrome. I'll come back here. Let's go to LWC masterclass, which is this app right here. And now I'll just move the component that we did last time. I'll move it to the right side and bring in the latest data, the latest component. Let's click here again, edit page. And I'll simply say search. So I have the imperative one. I'll just drop it here, and I'll move this guy here. Perfect. Save. And you see the background is not white, so I'll just put a lightning card. All right, so I'll just go in here. Let's go back, and outside this div, let me just put a lightning card. Okay, I'll just put lightning card, and this lightning card will close outside the div. Okay, now if you see, the indentation has been messed up a bit. It's not good. Always you should ensure that the indentation is correct. What you can do, you can simply say Control A or Command A, right click, and you can say refactor. If refactoring is not available, you can say format document. When you say format document, it takes care of indenting it automatically correctly. So now it looks a bit more neat, and it is very much readable. That's all. It does not change your code. Okay, great. That's done. Let's say deploy. I'll put a title so that it is the module is a bit more clean. Search task by subject. Okay, and I'll put imperatively. Done. Deploy it one more time. Close it. Close this, and close the meta file. We don't need it anymore. Close the terminal. Close this. Close this, and now go back. I have already saved it. Let me just go back, and now let's see how the component looks like. So the lightning input field is added. Perfect. Looks very nice, neat. And if I just come out of it, it says complete this field. See, automatically, no error handling from us. The lightning input is taking care of it. But if I type something, it will start working. Okay, great. So now enter your subject. Now what do we have to do to store this value somewhere? We'll have to bind this input to a value, correct? So the value attribute has to be bound here. I have to bind it with a variable. So I'll just call it subject text, or I can just simply call it subject. Simple, short and sweet. Okay, now if I've created this variable on the HTML, it is my duty to create this variable on JavaScript. Cool. So the variable is now created. But how will you tell the system that as soon as this value changes in the input field, as soon as you're typing here blah blah blah, it should be stored in the subject field? You have to have a listener which is on change. Correct, that's your event. We did events. I'll say handle subject change. This is what? This is camel case. H is small, S and C is capital. Now that you have defined it on the HTML, you need to go to your JS and define this function or this method. You will do that here. The beauty of using input fields and all of this is that whenever you have a function, you have event as an object available to you, so that you know who triggered this particular event and what is the value does it store. So we can say event dot target dot value. This is the value that I'm going to receive, and I'll go and store it in subject. Which subject? This subject, which is this right here, this dot subject. Makes sense? So now you have successfully been able to create an input field, bind it with a variable, and also have handled the on change. So whenever something changes, you will see it getting triggered. You want to see a demo? Let's quickly see. change happened. Okay, and I'll simply print out event.target.value. So you can see what does it show. Every time I click the wrong button, delete source, let's say deploy, and every time you basically change, the handle subject change will automatically be called, and this will contain the value that you have put in the input field. Let's verify, refresh, inspect. And whenever you're doubtful, whenever you're writing a line of code, don't write a lot of line of code immediately, then think that everything will work. Try to put console logs and breakpoints at certain places so that yeah, till this point in time my code was working as expected. Okay, now I say, let's say Ravi. So you see, I typed 4 characters, R, RA, RAV, RAVI. So there are 4 events that have been called. If I remove it, see, again the event is getting called. Now if I type follow up, see, this is how the event is getting called, and finally the value stored in the subject attribute is follow up. If I type call, so it is call. Alright, so I have the input field working as expected. Perfect. Now what's the next thing I want to do? I want to go back to my HTML. I want them to click a button. So I'll come here, outside this div, I'll create, let's say, one more div. Okay, see, designing and styling is in your hand. I'm just using this div that I have here, and I want a button, so I'm not going to code it. I'll go to the documentation and find B button here. It's all alphabetically sorted very nicely for you. So in basic buttons, okay, fine, I have buttons. I want the blue button. Okay, so where is this brand? So this one is brand. Okay, I'll take this button. Perfect. Let's take this button, and this button has come up with a lot of information already. Label should be search. Title should also be search. Okay, handle click, I'll just create a different function so that it is relevant. I'll say search subjects, or I'll say search tasks. So it should be relevant. Don't just put click, handle click one. Don't do that kind of stuff, right? So now I've created this particular on click, so I need to define this here as a function. And in buttons you don't have the event, because it will only trigger one particular event. Every button is capable of only triggering one event. But if you have multiple lightning inputs, you can use the same handle subject change. That's why you need the event there. Okay, but on buttons you just have one on click and one action tagged to it. So now when this method is called, what do you want to do? You tell me. What do you want to do? Again, writing it in a native language, basically, so that we figure out. So I want to call Apex and pass the subject that the user has entered. Receive the task list. As soon as I receive it, as soon as I receive the task list, I will map it to the variable so that it starts showing up on the UI. Okay, for those of you who are confident from the wire method, you can pause here and do it. For those of you who need to understand the imperative call syntax, let's continue. Okay, now first of all, what do I need? I need to call the method. So what are my prerequisites? First, that my method should be aura enabled cacheable equal to true. Perfect, that's there. So I want to call this fetch task by subject. So what do I do? What is my second prerequisite? I have to import it. And from where do I import it? Somewhere within Salesforce, inside Apex, I have a task controller, and that has the fetch task by subject method. The reason I kind of try to create it in a story so that you remember it. That's the only idea. Okay, now this is the method, and what is imperative call? Inside this button click event, I can call the method here, basically. That is the definition of imperative, as simple as that. Okay, now look at this syntax. Now when you have this fetch task by subject, it's an imperative call. What you can do is you can basically say, when this is called, then what should happen? Alright, and if something goes wrong, then catch that particular error. This is the syntax in a very high level. Okay, and you put a semicolon there. That's your imperative method syntax. The method has been called. When the method has been called, then what do I do? Then once I have a result, I can do something. Correct? Once I have the result, I'll do something. I'll put it here. But if I don't have a result, but I have an error, then I do something else, and that's your syntax. Okay, now when you have the result, what does that mean? That means you were able to successfully retrieve the data, correct? So I can say this dot task list is equal to result. Can I say that? But if I received an error, can I say this dot error message is equal to error dot body dot message? Can I do that? So now this is your imperative call. Inside a button click method, you are calling an apex call. Apex call looks at the import, calls this method, goes to apex, looks at this. Oh, there's an input parameter. I'll come back and I have to put the parameter. Like I told you with wire, same concept. Within curly braces, you put key value pair. How do you put the key value pair? What should be the key? You already know what it is. Key should be this particular string. Alright, and what should be the value? The value should be the subject that the user has entered. So in case of wire, what did you used to do? You basically bind it dynamically, but you don't have to worry and do all of that trouble and struggle in imperative. You can say this dot subject. Why? Because by this time when the button is called, this value is available on the subject. It's not like a wire scenario. So you have this value available, you can use the this dot subject. This is the value that's stored in the input field. This is the method which is in the apex, and when this now method is called, when you click on the button, it looks at the method, finds it here, goes to task controller, finds the method here, subject string has been passed, returns the task list. The task list comes back here, stored in result is sent to task list variable. Now what is the mistake I have made? I have defined the task list, I have defined the error message, but where is it defined? Where is it declared? It's not here. I have to do that, or else the code will not work and it will not even tell you what's wrong. Make sense? Alright, and this right here is your imperative call. Perfect. I'll get rid of this console log because it will take unnecessary browser space. I'll get rid of it, and this is what it is, and now I can just very well happily say deploy. Let's first of all see there are no errors on the JS file. Okay, now before binding things to the HTML, it is always precautionary and it's always good to be a bit cautious to check did you receive a result. So I'll just put the result here. Okay, or did I receive a error, so that I can just verify whether my apex connector is working properly or not. So this is how your debugging and your debugging skills and your consoles help you. Okay, I'll say deploy. Let's see what does this show. Okay, let's see. Should deploy quickly. So while this happens, yeah, it's already done. I was asking you guys to probably like this video, but yeah, let's continue again. I'm going to refresh this, and a lot of coding has been done, but on the UI there's nothing fancy that's written, only the button has been added. So what I'll do, I'll say follow up, and I'll say search. So you see, I'm getting the result and I have the objects available here. Similar to this list, you know, you have 10 records, you'll see 10 records here also. But that you see this object, don't get confused. This means that you are showing a list of object here because you have multiple of them, comma separated, right? So how do you see that information? You can use json.stringify. Someone in the comments actually asked me this question. Why do we do json.parse and stringify? So now you see, here once you want to verify what the result has come up with, you have to stringify, meaning an object is converted into a string, and because strings are visible properly on the browser, you can just use the stringify and see this data. Now if I go ahead and say deploy, same is with error. Error is also a object, so I can say stringify json.stringify error, and error will be inside bracket. And the syntax is always JSON capital. You cannot do small and capital. Okay, JavaScript is case sensitive. So json.stringify. Okay, done. Let's go back and refresh. Nothing will happen on the HTML, but we'll see some stuff on the browser. So I'll say call search. So you see, now I've got a very beautiful stringified object, and if I go to JSON formatter online, okay, I open this first link, I can validate and see what my JSON has been returned. So you see, there are two task records where this is the ID, this is the ID, this is the status, and blah blah blah. The subject is call, and because I typed call, this is what it's returning. If I say follow up, search, this is what I get. Amazing. Now we are successfully able to connect to the database. If I say format or beautify, where is it? There's an ad here. Let me just refresh. Format and beautify. You see, these are all my records, and all of them are coming from different task records that have been created, and they have their own status, priority, activity date, and stuff. All right. Now the final deal is basically, see, we understood, this is the crux of the tutorial today, but we understood, okay, the result is coming in and all is working as expected. The only thing we have to do is now bind this task list on the UI. Correct. So what I'll do is I need some sort of table here to display data. Correct. So what I'll do is I need a table inside the lightning card. Let's say put it here. Okay. I'll go back to lightning input, and here, do we have a table somehow? Is there a table that I can show? Let's see. Table. Not sure. I don't have a table that I can look at. Let me just put, HTML table example. Okay. I'll just pick up something basic. Okay. I'll just open this HTML table just for the use case. Yeah, this is fine. What else do we have? Let's see. I'll just go for something basic for now. Cool. So let's take this particular table. All right. Table. All right. I'll bring this guy here. Now, what do you have? You have static data here, right? This table contains table rows. Each table row contains headers, and then it contains, what do you call it? Table data. Headers, data. Now I know what my headers are. What are my headers? My headers are going to be ID, subject, status, priority, activity date. Perfect. So I'll just say ID, subject, status, activity date. What else? What did I have? Priority. These are my table headers. Okay. Let me get rid of this particular section for now. I'll comment it out just to verify if things are looking good on my screen. Okay. I'll go ahead and say deploy. Deployed. Let's come back here. Let's go to the first screen. I'll say refresh. So the table is showing up nice, but it does not have any spacing. So what do I want to do? I want to simply type, is there any SLDS class for table? I'll just go in here. Let's see, is there any styling for tables? So SLDS table is what I've put. Let's see if I find any styling available or not. I'm going to the Lightning Design System 2, and here let me see if they have any classes available or not. Yeah, I need to look at some sort of, a bit of a UI, a good UI. Is there any class available or not? Not sure. Let's look at a tree grid. Specifications, develop, base component. Let's see, what does it open? I'm just looking for a class, SLDS class, which can give some sort of styling at least. So here they're using a tree grid. I don't want that. I want basically a table, right? So let me go, let's do specification, documentation. Yeah, somewhere here, do I have a SLDS class? SLDS is just this right here, but let me do this. I'm going to put it, okay, don't worry. I'll just say table class is equal to SLDS table. Let's see what happens, okay, because I recall that there's a SLDS table class available. I could not find it in the documentation, but now if I say deploy, and what I'll also do is I'll keep the same spacing that I had on the top. So I'll just get this guy also, the P around medium and LGC background. Okay, I'll say deploy, close this. This was not helpful. Close this. I think I can close this as well. Close this as well. Refresh. Oh, awesome. Looks a bit better, right? Great. Now I have the table here, but it is showing without any rows. Now what do I want to do? I actually want to now show the rows. Correct. So what do? I have something that's called a task list. I have a task list, correct? And I can iterate over it. So what will I do? I'll simply say I'll say template for each, similar to what we did in our wire. For each task list that I have, for every item which will be called a task, I want to iterate this particular thing. What do I want to iterate? I want to iterate a row. I want to create a row dynamically, and inside it I simply want to put in my task dot information. So these names are static, they are going to go away, and I'm going to say task dot, and I'll put information here. So this is ID. I'll just copy these two guys again. I'll take this and paste it 4 times so that I have it here. Right now, what do I need? I need the subject, the status. These all should be the exact API names. Okay, these are all standard fields. If it was custom, you would see __c here. Okay, so it should be exactly the way you have written it in the query. And if you notice, see, look at my naming practices. I'm keeping everything, you know, sentence cased. A, D, P, D, S, S, I, all is capital here. Same thing I'm following here. So it's good to be consistent so that you don't run into errors. I'll get rid of this task list. My template is created, but somehow, let me get rid of this of tr. Somehow I'm getting an error. For those of you who are aware, what is the error? I'm on an iterator, so I need to define a key, correct? So I'll just say task.id, that's my key. All the errors have gone away, looks good. I'm going to say deploy. All right, deployed. Let me clear out these empty spaces. All right, let's deploy again. While this gets deployed, take this time to like the video if this was helpful, and put a comment. Imperative methods make sense. All right, so I know. Great, let's deploy, and now we can just say refresh, and hopefully when the button is clicked, I should see some data in the table. Right now it is all empty. I'll say call, search. Wow, the data is showing up here. Did the page have to reload? No, the data is showing up by just re-rendering, because task list attribute is getting populated by the imperative method. Okay, how does this react if I change the value here? Follow up, search. Oh wow, it still works, and it will work. All right, so this is how it is going to work. If I say email, search, there's no record. Okay, I'll say blah, there's no record. If I say su, there's no record. If I say follow, there's no record. All right, cool. What we have done here is an exact match. That's why if you type follow, you're not seeing the data, you're not seeing a result. Okay, but what I'll do is I'll leave this to you as a challenge. If you have to do a fuzzy check, like, you know, using the like operator, how would you handle it and what changes would you have to make? Just put it in the comments. All right, now the only last thing I want to cover up here is when I click on this, when I open this page, see, by default there's no data available here, but still the table shows, which is not good, right? So I want to be able to hide and show this table based on when I get results, right? How do you do that? You already have learnt about it. What we'll do is we'll introduce a Boolean flag. I'll say show table equals false. By default, I'll have a Boolean flag. I'll take this Boolean flag in my HTML and I'll put it around my table. I'll say if this Boolean is true, only then show the table, or else don't. Okay, now this table should be aligned. I'll put it here, done. But if it is false, don't show it. So now it is false by default because it is false, right? If I deploy this, you will not see the table. Because the show table is false and I have not set it to true anywhere. So if I go back here, now the table will be vanished completely. Okay. And now if I type something, I say follow up and I say search, the results are coming, but they're not showing on the screen. Why? Because the table is still hidden. So whenever you have the results, you also have to ensure that you are setting the Boolean flag as true. Only then the table will be visible, and that would look like magic. All right. And whenever there's an error, let it be, like, you know, we don't have to worry about it for now. Refresh. Let's see. I'll say call, search. So you see the table pops up only when there's data. All right. And if you say search without an input field, it's searching for now, but yeah, it will give you a pop-up. Search, it's now showing the data. All right. Great. I think we were able to cover a great deal, and imperative methods and wire methods are done, which is really great. Just put up a comment saying that you're feeling confident with this wire and imperatives, because I've taken a lot of time to explain the very basics and the fundamentals here, and it's important because it will help you when you do code and you write code where you have 20 of such methods in your one LWC file, and that will happen for sure, right? So this gives you a very good idea of how to look at records. Okay, how do you really look at them? You look at the code. Let's say someone else has written it. You will see, okay, subject has been bound, handle subject change. What is happening on the handle subject change? Okay, there's a setting the subject value, it is defined, fine. What about the button? Okay, button has this on click task. What is happening on this button click? Okay, there's some apex call, imperative call looks like, because it's not wire. So this is the method. Okay, fine, let me check what is task controller. What does this return? Oh, okay, it is taking a subject screen and it is returning all the tasks for that particular subject. Okay, fine. You come back here, if the result shows up, okay, that's why the table is not displaying on the load, because this is a boolean. So this is how you'll understand. All right, and this will become your foundation stone for big components that you will develop very soon. All right, great. I think that's all I wanted to cover as part of this particular tutorial. I'll come up with another topic in the next one, and we'll discuss and we'll continue our lectures. Till then, keep learning. Do subscribe the channel if you have not, and do comment imperative methods make sense if this was really helpful. See you in the next one.